Hey, I just wanted to drop in here today and talk to you about being uniquely you. It is a new year and a new day, and I want to encourage you that God created you uniquely. He created you for a purpose. It's a message I have said from the beginning, and that is partly because of my story. You have a story. We all have a story. They say you have to be like that person, or you need to fit into that group, and we're going to call you this kind of person, and therefore you can't associate with those people. I'm here to tell you, you are you, and God has a total freedom within that to do whatever He wants and has put desires in your heart. You are not boxed in or labeled. I react against labels. So, one of the things that I want to share with you is a bit of my story. I grew up in a family that had a lot of sickness and death. So I grew up without my mom tried to make it normal, but without a normal childhood, you might say. From the time that I was 8 until I was 16, I had someone very close to me pass away, and I began to think that anyone that I loved would not stay. And I began looking for that person who would love me unconditionally and who would stay forever. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because I was looking for Jesus. I did not realize it, and He found me. He was pursuing me, and I received Him into my heart when I was 19. I had moved out of my family home, and up till that point, I thought that I was like my mom. And from the time that I was very small, I felt this pressure from many people who loved me to conform and to change and to be like other people. I did not feel that they accepted me with who I was, and I really didn't know who that was. Thought I was like my mom. When I moved out and I began to be on my own and explore things that I enjoyed, I, with a shock, realized I was like my dad, which explained a lot because my dad and I had clashed when I was growing up. I'm sure he saw a lot of himself in me and wanted me to avoid problems that he had faced. And he had a temper that he had trouble controlling, and he had not had a good self-image when he was young and a young adult. He had gone through a lot of issues. He was alive during the Great Depression. He had been in a family with his father had been widowed 3 times and had 21 children. My dad was part of the first batch, they called them, and he had gone through poverty because his dad had a lot of money at the start and lost it. And so he had gone through trials. I'm telling you that because I am so much like him. He talked a lot. He was accused of talking too much. But the fact is that I recall my dad being one of the best listeners around anywhere. My dad would sit down with me and he would listen to me. This was after I grew up, after I'd had my first child. And we would come over, and he adored, and my mom adored their grandson. So we would go over, and my dad would listen, and he would give insightful comments, showing that he had listened. Well, through my growing up years and through high school, and I said I hate labels. Just hate labels. I hate being pigeonholed. I have always liked meeting people. I love meeting people. It's my second favorite thing in the world to do. And I have always loved meeting new people. I have always loved meeting people from around the world. So in high school, they tried to pigeonhole us, and your labels were what you were supposed to be and do and not get out of that box. You could associate with those friends, but not this group's friends. That didn't work very well for me. And so even though I was smart and could get good grades, I didn't do well in high school because I really, really rebelled against that. I hated it. And I was trying to figure out who I was. And I had people around me who tried to put me into a box. So many, my loved ones, my school, everywhere. And I didn't know who I was. Remember, I thought I was like my mom, but I was actually like my dad. My sister, I thought was perfect, and she was like my mom. So I tried to be, and through the years, I've tried to be like other people. Are you like that? Have you ever tried to be like someone else and kind of draw yourself the way that they are, or you see them? How many of you have been so frustrated trying to be someone you're not? It does not work, does it? And I just really encourage you in this new year to explore who God made you to be. He gave you desires. He gave you gifts and talents. There are assessments that you can take to help you find out your spiritual gifts, to help you figure out what kind, be careful because there's ones that are not good. But to find out how you are wired and how God made you, use the gifts that God has given you and really make those talents thrive. We are told that about the story in the New Testament about the 10 talents, 5 talents, and 1 talent given to people. And the king went away and came back, and the one person who had 1 talent had buried it. And really strong words were said to him. And the king is the image of Jesus and God. You do not want to hear the kind of really harsh words that were said to that person. Do not hide your talent. And the person with 5 and 10 doubled their talents. You need to look at what, and it applies to many different scenarios, doesn't it? It can mean your talents, your gifts, abilities. It can mean your financial estate and all of these things, your time perhaps. Invest wisely, but figure out who God made you to be. Ask Him. He wants to tell you who He made you to be. It's His pleasure, but it's not an introspective, just looking into yourself. Really finding out who God is and how that applies to you. And then, with a desire to glorify God in all you do, finding out how He made you so that you can bring more glory to Him. So, as I was saying, it wasn't until I was an adult that I began to figure out who on earth I was. And it wasn't even in my 20s or even in my 30s. I was still trying to copy and compare, and I was coveting other people's lives, other people's stories, and so much wasted time. and it was very painful. And I was extremely overweight, just not happy with who I was, trying to be other people, trying to copy them. And I just, I got depressed, and it's very miserable. And I was very miserable. These years, yes, I bore fruit. I did things that mattered, but only when I perhaps accidentally did things that were right in my area of giftedness. Some of my gifts are hospitality, and I said I love meeting new people. So having people into my home and getting to know them and discipling other women is a gift that God has given me, and I love to do it. I do it online here for you, and I love to do this. That's another thing that I did was writing and speaking. And I have, through the years, had good experiences writing and have had confirmation from other people about my writing. And I do that here in my Your Home for God business. So these were accidental discoveries. But when I found and landed there, I felt so fulfilled. And you will feel so fulfilled when you land on your gift and you land on something that you really love and that God has placed in you to do. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to find that. And through the years, I continued to feel compared, not only by myself, but mostly by myself. I was comparing, trying to copy other people. Well, if they did that and they had good, godly children, and they parented that way, then I would parent exactly that way. And I mean, down to if they made whole wheat bread and ground their own wheat berries, then I would definitely do that. And I did so many things and was so busy copying other people's lives that it was such a waste, because even if you successfully copy exactly these wonderful people, you are going to completely miss God's will for your life. Let that sink in. If you copy the best people around, you are going to miss God's will for your life. It does not mean that you cannot practice habits that will help you in life. It does not mean that you can't see godly character in others and seek to be discipled by that. But that's not what I'm talking about. So I want to encourage you to ask God to show you who He is and who you are, and commit to becoming all that He wants for you to be. And in this process, I was going along trying to copy, and God allowed me to have a very major thing happen. I was about 100 pounds overweight now, which obviously was not God's will for me. And I was bitter, so many things going on, so many wrong attitudes, wrong thoughts, mindset. And God, in His grace and mercy, allowed me to be diagnosed with ovarian cancer. That is called the silent killer, if you're not familiar with it. And they said it had spread. They said that there was more than one tumor. I found out on a Tuesday. By God's grace, on Friday, I had surgery amazingly fast, and prayers had been offered up for me on so many prayer chains, and God had done a work. And by Friday, there was one tumor. It was contained. Tuesday, there were 2 football-sized tumors, and I have seen this in print now. Just this year I saw it in print in the records from the hospital. They saw 2 football-sized tumors. Just imagine that. But by Friday, there was 1 still football-sized, but it was contained. And they said it had been caught early. So I began chemotherapy. I had 3 treatments over 3 months. And then I participated in a study where I had weekly chemo treatments. I didn't lose my hair. It was low dose. Did at the first, in the 3 at the first, and didn't in the 6 months that I was in a study. Every week. I believe that God sent me to a mission field when He allowed me to have ovarian cancer. I believe that God said, who can I send to the mission field of that hospital? And He chose me. He also gave me a powerful testimony. He changed me, and He forever opened the door for me to talk to people and to change their lives, because He transformed my life through cancer. People have a tendency to listen when you've gone through something that major. Maybe that's why you're listening to me now. My story of how I came to be able to minister to women is through all this pain, denying who I really was, trying to be other people, thinking that if I just found out, if I just copied others, my life would be smooth and I'd never have any problems, and my children could avoid all the problems that I'd had. Standing on my shoulders, they could just avoid it all. I learned forever after that moment. My story was changed forever, and I realized I am different. I am unique. My story is like no one else's. From that day forward, and I realized that God uses trials to transform us. That was the beginning of my transformation. Now I knew my story was different and included cancer. Then I had a new passion to be healthier. The next year, I lost 50 pounds. I had never been able to lose the weight. I lost 50 pounds. I share many of these stories on my blog and in my videos on YouTube. On my YouTube channel, I encourage you to go watch them. My life was changed through trials. The things I went through as a child, the deaths of so many people that I loved, the fact that I had a mom and a dad who had been widowed before and had children. So we were a blended family through death, not divorce. But my mom, we were just family. Going through all those things, going through the different trials, so many trials growing up, made me who I am and gave me a message for you. I can help you because I've gone through these things. I can help you because I know what it's like to not know who you are and then find out who you are. can help you because I have learned how to achieve huge goals. That one goal began like the first domino, knocking over all the others, many other goals, including starting this business. And now I help other people who want to grow their business because I have learned how to grow a large email list with a strong, engaged following and a 35% open rate, even though as it has grown, which is unheard of. And more than ever, right now, an engaged list and your story is so important, partly because of AI. It has its place, but no robot is ever going to take your place. And your story that God is writing in you and through you is a message that no AI can duplicate. I encourage you to figure out what your message is and share it with all who are exactly who God wants you to impact. Sometimes that person's called your ideal client. Sometimes they're called your avatar. I help people figure out exactly who that is and figure out what their biggest problem is to solve and figure out what you have to offer them so you can stop the hustle and grind, the exhaustion, the constant work, never being able to stop, never being able to take a day off, never being able to just relax and know you've got clients coming in. You know where your next sale's coming from. You know where all your next stream of followers and subscribers is going to come from. And being able to transform your subscribers into sales for life. I'm looking, it's kind of cool. I'm looking out the window and I just saw an eagle, a bald eagle. You can soar in 2024 like an eagle.